Been watching a fun video by your favorite creator. Oh, who is it? Who is it? Numi? Yo. How you guys doing this fine evening? Oh man. Maybe a good time to explain the meaning of this item. Yeah, I was just about to do that. That's why I opened up this folder over here. So, we got side images, which originally I put like a little title on the bottom of all of them to have them just, that's what they were called. But my graphic design took over, and it probably shouldn't have, because I'm like, oh, there's words everywhere, it's too busy, I'm already putting a bunch of memes on it. I'll just imply everything. Probably the wrong choice, if I'm honest. But either way, now people can watch this and feel it's kind of useful. Anyway, the Gunslinger Girl, and I guess I could say the sources of these if I can remember them. This is from Deadwoods or whatever. What's that, Deadwalker, the cowboy RPG? It's taken from one of the cover arts on it. Dead something. Dead Lands, that's it. She's a gunslinger, and it represents Alpha Shoot, which, if you're going to come up with an image for Alpha Shoot, I feel like Gunslinger is just it, right? Next one is Jetstream Sam from Metal Gear Revengeance. He is like an Iijutsu sort of master with a katana. So Alpha Strike, pretty obvious. Then we have a Castle, which represents the playstyle of Castle. Very direct. Oh yeah, you know what? Even though it's really basic, let's do this properly. Everybody knows this in my chat, probably, but for the sake of it potentially being a YouTube video, maybe you can cut this out if you need to. Alpha Shoot. This means that at the very beginning of the game, your army is built and is able to immediately shoot basically whatever you want from your opponent's army. Alpha Shoot. This is good because your opponent is probably playing stuff that would be hella obnoxious or possibly impossible to defeat unless you just killed it right away by shooting it in the face. So, Alpha Shoot. Alpha Strike is kind of like Alpha Shoot, only worse, but kind of better as well. There are positives and negatives. Alpha Strike is like Alpha Shoot, except it's melee. It's physical. Your guys sprint or run or teleport or deep strike or ambush or whatever to get all the way across the board and immediately just start fighting crap, which if you're playing a prepared opponent is a bunch of chaff and you might get counter-striked. Or if you're playing an opponent who's just trying to play cool stuff and doesn't like chaff, they will be paying for their arrogance by getting hammered down. And then also there's dudes in your face, so that when your opponent gets to go now, there's just a whole bunch of dudes immediately right there, and so it's harder to spread out and project power.
Oh, big!
Yeah, Scott Freddy, oh, big. That is true, yeah. Anyway, so that's Alpha Strike. Why is it worse than Alpha Shoot? Because it's not as safe. You can get counter-struck. Your opponent can, after you kill their front guys, they can like charge you on their turn, so it's not quite as safe. Why is it better than Alpha Shoot? Because melee on the whole does way more damage than ranged. If you're talking about like a Best Army's hammer versus some other Best Army's hammer that happens to be ranged, right? And also you're physically in their face, which means it's hard for them to project power after that. So a little bit riskier, but it has upsides. Castle, this is kind of a deployment, but it's also a strategy and playstyle as well. You could call Castle, you could rename this and call it Looks Like an Actual Army, which is becoming a rarity in the silly over-the-topness of Age of Sigmar. But then again, I think Rank and Flank is wholly uninteresting to play with, so for me it's a good thing, for you it might not be a good thing, kind of depends on your taste. And so Castle is, imagine you're deploying your army, and you do it so that your army kind of looks like a castle. You have a bunch of your heroes and wizards and stuff all in the center little courtyard. And then you're surrounded by your big, elite foot troops and all that. So they make the castle walls. And then you have a moat around that of your inexpensive chaff that is supposed to die and waste your opponent's time. And so you're sort of concentric rings of dudes. That then the whole thing kind of moves up and you're reasonably protected. And a lot of times castle armies tend to shoot because if you want to get into melee, having an excessive amount of chaff isn't like the best necessarily, but it could be. So yeah, anyway, that's a castle army. Then we have an equation for murder, and this is armies that more than most, because everybody does this, but armies that more than most need to care about standing in Venn diagrams of concentric buff circles. Who am I within 9 of this and also 8 of this, and wholly within 12 of this other thing, and so on and so forth. You know, armies that I'm thinking of are such like Khorne, or I really could have put Fire Slayers in here, but they had more going on. These little pictures just kind of represented the things that came to my mind as the top 3, maybe. For sure, almost all of these armies have facets of many of these different pictures. You know, it's not like Fire Slayers doesn't have the ability to Alpha Strike. It technically can because it has a deep strike. It's just not the, you know, the main strat of the army exactly. So anyway, that's an equation for murder. The good part about it is that all of those concentric annoying buff circles that you are staying within tend to be strong. The downside is it's tedious as fuck to play like that, and it's generally considered a straight up downside, almost. Just because it's super annoying to stay within a whole bunch of circles, and if you have to go somewhere, it's broken. It's kind of annoying, in other words. But everybody does this to some degree, because command abilities have ranges, and spells have ranges, and so on and so forth, right? And then we have Dr. Doom here from some comic, I don't know. And this is control, represents control. There aren't too many control strategies as the idea for a whole faction in the game of Age of Sigmar, although we do have some. Tzeentch is supposed to play as control, Slaves to Darkness. Legion of the First Prince, I would say, is very clearly a control playstyle. OBR could arguably be control if it used the things that it no longer uses because 3rd edition kind of screwed up a lot of their stuff, but I think it's supposed to be. That's the intent. Lumineth Realm Lords are control for sure. That's their playstyle. And nobody likes playing against control in basically any game ever, but I would contest that it's an important archetype to have in your game, lest combo archetypes and, you know, things like that become unmanageable. Ahem. Here we have CounterStrike. It's 2 fencers from some Olympics, I don't know. France getting in there. I see you. And this is the strategy that how do I put this? I don't want it to seem like a bad thing, because it's not. It's actually a smart thing. This is a smart tactical choice. But usually, CounterStrike is what an army that would like to Alpha Strike, but its Alpha Strike plan isn't quite good enough, and so it falls back on a CounterStrike plan. And it changes things to be able to do it. So, and this is what Beastclaw Raiders do, for instance, speaking of armies I play. And a lot of armies are able to do this. Almost everyone can be a CounterStrike army if they really want to be, but some people sort of accentuate it. And it's usually paired with chaff or speed bumps or something to get in your opponent's way, so they have to waste a combat phase killing something that doesn't matter. And now it's your turn. They're standing in the middle of an open field. Their pants just fell down, and it's time to countercharge them off the table, right? That's kind of CounterStrike. Usually, if you're CounterStrike, you also have pretty good movement, because you're trying to run circles around them as well. Yeah, like Karadan Overlords, yeah, like disengage and shoot, or fly high and land somewhere else. You know, KO for sure have this as well. And then we have, I can't remember this dude's name, he's a commander card. Some Chad vampire dude, look at him. All of his servants and everything are putting on his armor for him, giving him his gloves. Here's a goblet of blood over here. Here's your big sword, master. You know, not even looking at him. Here's your cape, dude. This is a Death Star. Edgar Markov, that's the dude. What a Chad. Look at this. Great artwork. Big fan. I could have put a picture of the Death Star, and I fully understand that, and I will accept the criticism. Look, I put a picture of the Death Star when I said the word Death Star the first time, but this art is cooler, and so I used it. And a Death Star is... The definition has expanded a little bit, you know, from elsewhere. You've probably heard it or other games, but essentially it is when your job is to take 1 or 2, usually just 1, maybe 1.5, humongous hammers, like 30-man unit, 15-man, you know, elite unit, something like that, just giant unit, and put every single buff, zone, stay within 12, give them Mind Razor for extra rend and bonus damage, and curse your enemy for 6's proc mortal wounds, and give them this prayer that gives them +1 to wound, and give them a sippy cup where they drink it, and now like your Catechism of Murder or whatever the thing is called gives it, so every buff ever, and now it's basically like on the table, it's like flashing multicolors in real life, like an arcade boss from the 90s is about to die, and it's just like this thing is so juiced up. it becomes unmanageable. And then it just sort of runs over the table like a lawnmower. And that would be a Death Star. Where it's sort of a bad thing because you're putting all your eggs in one basket. And a lot of times there's a linchpin in there that if someone, say, shoots the linchpin in the head, maybe everything is ruined. But that's the like downside. But the upside is if all your buffs land, you do infinite damage and you can kill anything. And a lot of the times you have a trick or two that stops people from being able to like fully kill the thing right away, or maybe you strike first, or maybe you can pile in 6 or something like that. We have Wayne Reynolds artwork, which I thought was from D&D or maybe Pathfinder, but it turns out it was a WoW TCG. Who knew? And he's got every single weapon ever, and he's chilling, and he can use any of them. It's good stuff. I needed some sort of standard good stuff picture that didn't seem like a cop-out, because I think good stuff as a explanation for a playstyle has the danger of seeming like the good use of color of playstyles. And what I mean by that is, in film school, we had this meme where we were joking where whenever you had like, all right, you show your project in front of the class and now it's time for everybody to comment on it and ask questions. Oh, what did you think of this? What did you think of that? Essentially feedback, right? And when the project wasn't very good and you were sort of struggling to think of something good to say because you weren't trying to only give criticisms, or maybe you couldn't think of anything good to say, and that's a little rude, and so you just had to think of something. There was this very nice girl in class, and she was clearly struggling to think of something nice to say, and she was one of those girls who habitually apologized for everything, like sorry is almost like for her. So she's like, good use of color. That was what she went with. And everyone had a laugh at it, and it became a meme where when someone showed like a truly awful project, people would be like, hey, good use of color, like as a clear insult, kind of. Anyway, I didn't want good stuff to be that because that's the danger of it. So to me, good stuff isn't just I had nothing else good to say. It's actually, of most of the roles that you could want in an army, it has a pretty decent pick for all of them. Like, what do you want? You want cavalry. Well, their cavalry's pretty good. Oh, you want a hammer. Well, their hammer's pretty good. Oh, you want a hero monster. Well, their hero monster's pretty good. Oh, you want a wizard or a priest or something. Well, that shit's pretty good too. Oh, you want a ranged unit. Well, that shit's pretty good too. And so what's the word for it? You don't necessarily need to do like a single-minded all-in strategy. You're just kind of, I don't want to say jack of all trades, because that also has huge negative connotations, but maybe I should just embrace it, because when you're talking about gaming, for the most part, you always want to specialize, and it's just always wrong not to super specialize. And this isn't like a truism, but it's kind of close to it. But still, that can be fun. It's diversity. Yeah, Curly Joe. Good stuff could be fairly synonymous with broad toolkit. Not all the way, it's not the whole spectrum, because almost no army has something great for every single thing, but a reasonably larger amount than normal, I would say. Anyway, so that's good stuff. We have Grindhouse, and here we have John Cena holding up, I think that's the Big Show and some other dude. Fucking Strunk, right? And Grindhouse, I guess you could call it a brawler. Maybe that's a better name for it now that I've already finished the fucking video. But you're essentially big durable dudes that their damage is pretty good, but they're not glass cannons. They can get punched in the jaw and just sort of shake it off and keep fighting. Another definition of Grindhouse might be an army that once it gets stuck in combat, feels like it actually wants to be there in that combat and grinds your opponent down. And then afterwards, they don't seem that worse for wear. Maybe they even wanted to be there. And so it's armies with a lot of like troop regeneration or replenishment, or, army-wide 5-up ward, or a bunch of Hearthguard Berserkers on 4-ups where they just keep getting punched and they kind of don't give a fuck, and then they kill you. This is distinct from an anvil, because an anvil is supposed to die slowly or be almost invincible. But typically, it is paying for that with either speed or offense, and often both. Yeah, Mortek Guard and a Harvester. Because Mortek Guard and a Harvester, like Mortek Guard, if you give them the 5-up, spell, their damage is fine. They're not like, Sisters of Slaughter with all the buffs damage, but their damage is respectable and it will kill stuff. And then for every Mortec guard that you kill, which is kind of hard, especially during the combat phase, Harvester's just sitting there printing money, right? Yeah, to get stuck in, as the Ironjaws would say. You kind of want to get stuck in. So I'm thinking of Nurgle, I'm thinking of Fire Slayers, I'm thinking of certain Soulblight Gravelords, and OBR very much. Yeah, big show, true, yeah. And that's Grindhouse. This is a rarity. It's hard to get this to work, or it seems hard for Games Workshop to get this to work. A lot of units in the game seem to be designed to do this and just wholesale fail at doing this. Because consistently Games Workshop perhaps underestimates how much damage shit does in this game when players only care about damage, that's not totally the case, but it's largely the case. And so you get these, I'm a meat and potatoes, I got good defense and good offense, and I'm sort of middle of the road. You're just going to get ran over and exploded by like the glass cannon craziness that people run with. And so it's rare for a Grindhouse or Brawler or stuck-in style unit to actually excel and end up being a thing, which is why I don't use this a lot. Next. This is a gun line. It is a picture of a gun line, and it represents the playstyle gun line. All right, we're done here. It's a line of guns. This is Mass Effect with based FemShep at the front here. And it represents Hero Hammer. And Hero Hammer is, okay, well, there are definitions from 40k and all this other stuff. I tend to just play AOS, so yeah, Hero Hammer is when your heroes are sort of the stars of the show. They're supposed to move around, they're supposed to actually enter combat, they're doing really important things. Your troops are serving a useful purpose for sure, and I'm not saying you're capping out exactly on hero slots, but you almost cap out on hero slots. I'm thinking of armies like Slaanesh, where you're playing like 6, almost. This could be what Stormcast wants to do, but it shouldn't, because if you do, your army ends up being really weak, but it seems like what they want you to do with Stormcast is Hero Hammer, or like Flesh Eater Courts, for instance, where you're playing a bunch of like, here's my Terrorgeist, here's my Zombie Dragon, here's my Arc Regent, here's my Crypt Honker with a funny thing that used to be Smash Bat, which is kind of fun, or even possibly something like a quote-unquote fun Cruel Boys list, where you're running 1 or 2 Master Blasters, and they're just like moving around slapping the shit out of people, right? It's a Hero Hammer. It's not always a bad thing, but it's rare to get it to work right. Games Workshop prints endless foot heroes for 160 points that are supposed to just fight, and that's about it, and they all fucking suck. There's like 3 of them that don't suck. But they're slowly getting better at this. Oh yeah, Nighthaunt as well. I think I might have even said, it might be in the video where Nighthaunt is Hero Hammer, but I suspect that's going to be the case. Especially with the new book, it seems like they want you to do that. And so many of your heroes in Nighthaunt are actually good, and you could go in on them. Krulgast Cruciator giving you Seraphon ability, which is so sick. New Bringy Dingy Man, even Olinder with her 4-up ward now, and Mortal Wound spell that I misread the first time I read it. Spirit Host giving bodyguard to anything, so you can really double up on even Kurdos maybe. Unironically, maybe Kurdos. Isn't he on Ren 3 or some nonsense like that? Or Ren 2 damage 3 on his thing? And damage might be actually the struggle point for Nighthaunt, besides just getting a lot of multi-charges in. Crowd and Hero Frigate Wen? Yeah, I know. I think if you put a Navigator in them, they should become a hero. But I don't write the books. Are Brutes and Gorgruntas grinders, or are they closer to glass cannons? I think they're closer to grinders, but they might just be cannons. I think Brutes and Gorgruntas are cannons that, instead of being made out of glass, they're made out of like some sort of aluminum. But thick aluminum. Like, it's kind of hard to cut through. They have good saves, right? Their saving throws are pretty good. They're not anvils, really. But they're not glass cannons either. I would just say they're cannons. You're here to pound. You're here to cordially welcome your opponent to Pound Town for the most part. Here's a million zombies from I don't know what movie. I just typed in zombies. And this is like the 4th image on Google image search. So I don't know what this is from. It's a bunch of zombies. It represents hordes. That's not very complicated. Hordes, okay? In 3rd edition, a lot of hordes are like MSU, which stands for multiple small units, or it could stand for minimum-sized units, but they both basically mean the same thing, except one is plural. And I consider it in the umbrella of horde anyway, because you're playing a bunch of them one way or another, whether they're all connected or not. And so, Gloomspite Gitz wants to do this, but kind of doesn't right now. I'm expecting them to do it once the new book comes out for sure. Skaven wants to do this, but kind of doesn't right now, and I'm expecting them to do it once the new book comes out. You'll hear me say that a lot, I guess. Soulblight does that right now, and it's actually really good. Playing 1,000,000 zombies is sick. Beast of Chaos does it, although it does it in MSUs for the most part. Because most of their rend stuff doesn't target them, it targets the opponent, so you can afford to just split up your guys. It's a good strat. It used to be the way you played Warhammer. In 1st and 2nd edition, it was like the massive regiment horde meta, almost for the entirety of both editions. Now, briefly, we had like a hero monster hammer thing, but it's already starting to, the more hero monster hammer you get, the more horde starts coming back into the meta, even though the edition kind of doesn't want you to, because there's all these limitations now. But here's Jace Bellerin from one of the guild packs, I'm not sure which one. This is Magic Dom top energy. You're just a huge fucking wizard. It's close to control, and sometimes it steps on control's toes a little bit. Because when you have lots of really strong, or maybe even just one big, strong wizard, they tend to be good at unbinding, which is, if you have like a +3 to unbind, or you auto-unbind or something like that, it can feel kind of control-y when you're playing against lesser wizards. But anyway, you cast a shitload of spells and you're really good at it. That's Magic Dom. And specifically the Dom part of it means, unless your opponent is playing a certain class of wizard, you're probably going to smother them with your shit. Nagash on +3 to unbind, techless auto-unbinding stuff, so on and so forth. This is the same as Gunlines, except they're on ships, and so I made this one basically just for KO. It's like if your Gunlines have transport, which is, there's only one such thing in the game, so here it is. Monstars from Space Jam. Monster Mash, in other words. A lot of armies can play a bunch of monsters. Only a few armies actually excel when they do so. What's that guy's name? Bill Wirtz on the Japan video with boats. Gunboats, yeah. Anyway, these are the armies that are supposed to monster mash and actually do well when they do that. And so I'm thinking of Beastclaw Raiders, I'm thinking of SOB, and surprisingly Fire Slayers from what I've seen. I don't have direct knowledge of this, it was just part of my research, and it turns out, unless that shit was super wrong, Fire Slayers has a monster mash playstyle, and it's not even that bad. So, any Fire Slayers player in the chat want to correct me, I hope I'm right. Ahem. Supposedly Flesh Eater Courts can do that too, but I'm hesitant. I don't know. I've played against Flesh Eater Courts that are playing a bunch of like non-hero version of Terrorgeist and stuff, and it seemed awful to me. But then again, I was playing like Beastclaw, so maybe it was just a bad matchup for them trying to do the same thing. I don't know. Anyway, there was other stuff to talk about for Flesh Eater, so I didn't have to address it. But only bad thing about Uppsala Magdros is the price tag. Yeah, for sure, probably. Now we have Batman with the Infinity Gauntlet. This represents silver bullets. I was thinking about doing like a Kryptonite ring, but I guess I forgot. I was working on too much other stuff. But yeah, you have like a bandolier of silver bullets, an answer to every question, and you can like expand on this as much as you sort of want. I'm thinking about armies like Idnet Deepkin that just sort of has a trick that screws over kind of anyone or a lot of people, depending. Seraphon is a silver bullet army for sure when one of their sub-factions renders like a third of the armies in the game just awful against them because of hardened scales. Or, yeah, when I mentioned Idnet Deepkin, like you can only shoot the closest one, and so every shooting army just feels really bad against them. That's like a silver bullet army. Or in another universe, in some other zone where Skaven just got a new battle tome, it might be that Skaven are a silver bullet army actually. Because you're like, oh, here's my castle Skaven army, and I get to choose my ranged firepower. And if your opponent is weak to mortal wounds, you can choose warp lightning cannons and get them, And if your opponent is weak to getting shot in the face, you can choose your sniper weapon teams and shoot them in the face and proc mortals on 6s and stuff to have a mixture of physical and mortal wound damage. Or if your opponent is weak to having to roll 65 saving throws against Ren 2, maybe you could put more warp power on your Globadiers that you bought for $2,000 at $15 a model or something like that. So, or even like Gatling cannon stuff or whatever. Pocket Kryptonite Sand? Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, Manzag. I got the comment out before the thing popped up. Got him. Anyway, that's silver bullets. I can't remember. I always forget this guy's name. Doing his little entrance ceremony here. E Honda. Well, it's the person that they modeled E Honda after. For one, Yokozuna for sure. And this is T-posing on objectives. This is when you roll up to objectives. You're very anvil generally, and you're chilling, and your opponent charges you, and either they bounce off because your durability is incredible. Chiyono Fuji, that's it, I think. Chiyono Fuji. I knew he was a Fuji. He was one of them. Anyway, you're either absurdly defensive like Nurgle or Fire Slayers used to be, or, you know, maybe you have this thing where whenever the opponent charges you, you just fight them first, and then you're also really durable like Fire Slayer, you know, so Sons of Behemoth just T-pose on objectives and that's their bag. OBR kind of wants to do this sometimes, right? Yeah, he slaps, good one. 5 out of 7. I got it. Anyway, there it is. Chiyono Fuji. T-posing on objectives. Here we have a tightrope walker guy, and this is the tempo and finesse represents, which some would, so like how I didn't want Grindhouse to just mean good use of color, I don't have anything else to say about you. I didn't want tempo and finesse to be this army fucking sucks and you have to work really hard to win with it, which tempo and finesse could be accused of being if you look at the armies that I say are this. But I assure you that's not exactly the case. It just seems like it. Tempo meaning you have to make sacrificial plays that will get you ahead in the long run, or waste your opponent's time, or finesse making the tactical, the exact right plays at the right time. You can't just point and click your buffs on your overpowered unit and roll in. You know, you gotta actually play the game a little bit. And your armies often look like a pile of what the fuck is going on here. How did I just lose to this? Well, get good, kid. You know, so there's a bunch of finesse, tactical, or finesse and tempo armies that do that. But look at this dude. Look at this dude. Absolute Chad energy. The charisma of it. That this could be you if you choose these armies and you don't lose with them all the time. And we have Metal Gear Solid 3, which has a bunch of what you might consider heroes on it. And so some people were confused, and now that I have read their comments, I understand the confusion. Between the Mass Effect, a bunch of heroes, and the Metal Gear Solid 3, a bunch of heroes. But let me give you my reasoning. The Mass Effect, a bunch of heroes, is Hero Hammer, where your heroes are the stars of the show, and you're just kind of slapping stuff, and you're running 5 or 6 of them, and your troops are just kind of there. Metal Gear Solid 3 is supposed to be tactical tricks. That's what it's supposed to represent. It doesn't really have anything to do with heroes. It may or may not. But this is about tactical tricks. You're tricky. You're the cruel boys. You know, you're... I can't remember what all armies I put this on, but there's a bunch of them, right? I think Seraphon, possibly, is what I put that on. But yeah, so this is the tactical tricks representation. And that's it. That's all of them. We got through it. And that's an explanation of all of the playstyle pictures. Slan brain maneuvers, yeah. What else did I want to talk about but I couldn't get to? The state of balance. I wanted to talk about this, but the intro to this thing was just so fucking long that I had to make it bare bones. I had to just cut to what I felt were the most important things to talk about in about a minute and a half. And then get right into the video because... man, if you take too long to get to the fucking point, people will click away from your video so fast your head will spin. And so I tried to keep it concise. But I did want to talk about 3rd edition balance a little bit and the history of it. And I not only didn't end up doing it because of time issue, but also, if you are a new or prospective player, of what relevance is it to you how things used to be? Oh, Slaanesh used to be overpowered? Hey, awesome. But I'm getting into the game at this exact moment, and Slaanesh suck. So, if you're telling me they suck now, because they used to be too good, who gives a fuck how good they used to be? Like, the armies should just all be balanced, because that's the goal, right? I don't give a shit what this used to be or that used to be, just have the game be good right now, you know? The history of it and everything like that. You can find out the history of whatever if you give a shit to, but if you're brand new to the game... it kind of doesn't matter like what the balance used to be like in 1st edition versus 2nd versus 3rd, or, you know, massive regiments used to be really good and then they changed the rules and now 3rd edition just came out and so on. So I couldn't help myself a few times. I mentioned something like that. I think in the OBR section is the one part that really springs to mind. But for the most part, I tried not to be like, well, it used to work like this, but now it works like that. Who cares? That's water under the bridge, old guy, with your brain filled with ancient statistics and rules and everything that have since changed and are now irrelevant. No need to burden the new generation with them. Old man yells at cloud, yeah. Okay, boomer, actually, yeah. So what I was going to talk about at the beginning was 3rd edition Age of Sigmar is... Oh, I think I talked about this at the beginning of this stream, didn't I? Where we're just like really balanced now. Yeah, I mentioned that already. I had a big section where I was talking about that, where the game is really balanced competitively right now, way better than it used to be. People indeed complain about stuff, and they're not wrong to complain half the time, right? But, relatively speaking, it's way better than it used to be. So, fine, right? However, there is a bit of a snag, I think, in that while competitive balance has arguably never been better in Age of Sigmar, I mean, even the worst armies are every once in a while going 5-0, albeit when Silbuza or something plays them, but, you know, it's possible, and it didn't even used to be possible even when good players were playing them in 1st and 2nd. The casual balance might be a problem, and I don't interact with a lot of casual players, so I wasn't able to like speak on it with a lot of authority, which is another reason why I didn't end up putting it in the video, but maybe you guys can tell me. Some of you may be casual, or even know someone who's casual, right? I feel like this is a mesothelioma ad for asbestos or something. If you know or are around someone who is casual, they might be entitled to an explanation about balance, right? Because 3rd edition has added reactions to the game, a lot of different single-use stuff. You can play on your opponent's turns. You can react at certain times. You have to choose a battle tactic every time it's your turn and then carry that thing out, and that's a lot of thinking and a lot of choosing and a lot of thinking ahead. You have to stop your opponent from succeeding in their battle tactics. You have grand strategies to think about. Should I unleash hell here? Should I redeploy here? If I move this guy first, my opponent gets to redeploy, and so maybe I'll move this unit first instead, so that they won't be in a position to successfully redeploy well, so it won't screw me up. You know, all this stuff to think about now. That's a lot more complicated than the game used to be. Which is good if you are a competitive player who is good and enjoys improving and challenging themselves and coming up with clever tactics and tricks and plays to show your creativity and skill at the game and see real benefit from that. But it also gives you a lot of opportunity as a casual player, with all these choices now, to shoot yourself in the foot constantly at any moment. And so maybe like it's kind of complicated now, and you just have all these opportunities way more opportunities to screw up than you used to have, and that might actually be a bad thing. I don't know. I've talked to a lot of casual players. Only great games. Thanks to the tier 1. I appreciate it. TY for the 11 months. Yeah, Tom Lyons just went 5-0 with Night Haunt. The old Night Haunt. Yeah, in a cave, right. You say the game is horribly balanced the second you play a game smaller than 2K. I don't play a lot of games smaller than 2K, so I really can't say. On paper, it doesn't seem like it. But I don't know what the metagame is for 1K army. I don't spend any time thinking about it or playing with it, so I'm not sure. Theoretically, it doesn't seem particularly balanced, but who knows? Rickroll, casual player here, coming from Magic the Gathering. Oh, well, with all due respect, your opinion is now discarded. You used to play Magic the Gathering. You're not a casual at AOS. Even if you play AOS casually, your mind has been forged in the flames of Magic the Gathering, and so you are a cut above what I would consider the like Age of Sigmar casual person who hasn't played anything but Candy Crush on their phone, you know, and is 55 years old, and their models look like they were varnished in absolute spilled beer and pretzel dust, right? However, I agree with you. I like the back and forth reactions. I like being able to use instants, essentially. I like all the decisions you get to make. I enjoy that stuff. But if you're a gamer, right? Like if you play a bunch of games and this isn't your first rodeo, and I'm not talking about Magic, I'm just talking about general gaming or tabletop or video gaming or whatever. It's not particularly complicated. You'll screw up, sure, everyone screws up, but it's not like overwhelming. The Warhammer casual can hardly even be seen on the ladder of how competitive things are from your average like gamer casual. Warhammer casual is way more casual than average gamer casual. Yeah, your brain has been forged to be perfectly smooth and round, spherical, oblate spheroid. Anyway, only great games. Thanks for the tier 1. I will now read your message, but I was kind of on a tangent. HeyWoah. Had to take a break from your streams when work made us return to site, but I returned to find a fresh Every Army video and a whole VODs channel to catch up on. Yeah, we're juicing her up. Getting that turbo bus going. Anyway, thanks for liking my stuff, and please enjoy some new content. Also, by the way, you know, I just finished a YouTube video, and I feel like doing some more. I might do some more. I'm already, instead of taking the day off and just playing Diablo 2, which was going to be my plan, I decided to start typing away at the next video, and then have a stream about Q&A stuff, and we're going to put this on HeyWoah Plus. And so once it becomes too hot in my room due to the AC being off, and I feel like I've answered a reasonable amount of questions about the video, I'm going to shut it down, and we're just going to work on the next YouTube. Keep streaming. I got editors and stuff for VODs and everything now, so hey, let's just churn them out. Let's make YouTube videos every 2 years instead of every 4 years. How about that?